And we're finally getting caught up. What is up, CSGO viewers? Welcome back to more esports talk and latest and greatest in rumors, guys. But the speculative Dignitas roster slowly coming to more fruition, brought to us by Nell. That also means some huge changes for other Swedish teams out there, all of which do not include Fnatic, which, when you think about it, a strong finish to 2019 and going forward in 2020, if they stick it out with their roster, they should only be pulling farther ahead of these other three triangle Swedish teams who continue to make their changes. Now, with that being said, this also means supposedly another gigantic move for NiP, losing GetRight or GTR not too long ago, and now apparently his brother in arms F0rest will also be leaving. But it does start actually at the bottom with GamerLegion. Now, I don't necessarily mean ranking wise. We'll see how these teams do play it out when it comes time for the start of these changes, though. It starts with GamerLegion. If you guys also remember, over the past 3 months, they've practiced with at least half a dozen guys out there, many players going in and out of GamerLegion, everyone very confused exactly what was going on there. And it does actually make sense, as now they'll actually have Draken back on their active roster to replace Knock, who will be going, yes, to NiP to replace F0rest, who, by the way, will be going to Dignitas to start their own roster. So with those rosters on screen for all of you guys, yes, it does mean GamerLegion changes. Along with that, the next sequential lineup being NiP, they will change as well, and finalized by Dignitas, which will be pretty much NiP Part 2. I've been calling it the NiP reunion. I think some people out there could call it the NiP retiree party, because a lot of the players on that lineup formerly NiP, and also what we could suppose are probably fairly close to retirement. And so it does ask the question. I love that GetRight and F0rest are playing together. I understand that, but as a news outlet, I must give, at least at some points, my opinion or my thoughts on these kind of moves out there. And this is a weird one for a team like Dignitas, who is already spending large, exorbitant amounts of money in League of Legends to make their return there with a new rebranded Clutch Gaming roster turned to Dignitas. They're spending $2.3 million on a single player over 2 years, that being Huni, and now to probably drop some huge amounts of money on GetRight and F0rest and Freiburg and Exist, and alongside Halzerk, a new up-and-comer who we don't really know too much about, at least in my standards. This is a very, very strange move. I get the fan appeal, and I get that when it comes to Dignitas branding, maybe they want more of appeal viewership-wise and maybe skill-wise, but to not question this would just be stupid. I think it's continuously very weird, like a talented guy like Draken is continuously at the bottom of the totem pole, especially when it comes to Swedish talent out there and Swedish oppers. I think it's super strange. I think GL, that being GamerLegion, has had potential for quite some time, as they've had a lot of these rising talents in and out of their roster as well, but obviously losing to the big pressure of bigger wallets out there. So that part does make sense to me. You look towards a team like NiP, I think they have certainly improved ever since the leaving of GetRight with that newer talent and a guy like Plopsky with such huge promise. On top of that, when you look towards a new Dignitas return to CSGO and you go back to a very, very old lineup, I don't know. These guys have not accomplished much in the recent years. Of course, in their peak, in their prominence, they were titans of CSGO. I still think, especially many would agree with me on this, F0rest has a lot of potential still, especially given his age, to be a top player in the world and to play, I guess you could choose friends over success and friends over titles. Will this Dignitas roster be able to compete at the top level? I don't see many people thinking so. A very interesting signing. Congratulations to the guys if this does come true. Even more so, and even more importantly, I still like that GetRight and F0rest are playing alongside each other. I get the chemistry, and hopefully that does prove itself to be worth it. Alongside that, though, it would be F0rest leaving just after, I believe, 7.5 years with NiP, and that would mean NiP losing 2 more of their key figures and prominent figures, much like the Virtus Pro have lost most of their 5, all of their 5 by now, the golden 5 of Virtus Plow, and now NiP is losing GetRight and F0rest, which means, will you guys still be cheering for them? The story is not over, though. You guys can give your thoughts about NiP and the new Swedish lineups out there, including Dignitas, which is going to be, I don't know. I'm very curious about that one. More so, though, also very curious, North American signing finally coming to fruition. That being announced this morning, Cloud9 have announced the signing of ATK. By the way, yes, ESL Pro League spot, ECS Challenger spot will be theirs. I've said it time and time again, guys. I'll repeat myself. This team has to make the major to stick around with Cloud9. Luckily enough, unlike many other new teams out there, this is not a new member, a new 2 members, a new half roster. This roster's been playing together for a little bit of time together, so it does not mean the typical 3 to 4 months after a new roster change happens where you got to undergo the meshing and, of course, the accommodation of a new player to a roster. This team knows each other, and so with that, ESL Rio is the primary target. Will Cloud9 can prove themselves? Can they make it back to a major? Because as a gigantic North American organization, that That has to be your overall goal. Yes, you have some leagues coming up in CSGO for 2020, which will slowly be announced here. When it comes time for proving your worth, I think these guys have to make the major. Do they have the potential? I will give them note. I love a guy like Floppy. I love this team, and I am biased as a North American fan out there, but they must prove themselves. Every other Cloud9 roster over the past year and a half has failed to do so in terms of actual results. Even past the major, they need some actual LAN event wins that have some actual, significance. And I don't think I'm alone when I state that, guys. I am super excited for these boys, and I hope they can actually mesh it up and actually prove themselves and prove a lot of the haters and doubters wrong in this case. A very curious signing. Cloud9 have now acquired ATK, and we will see exactly where they go. I think the major has to be a goal. Some actual Tier 1 LAN event tournament wins has to be the goal. And when it comes time to giving credit where credit is due, this was really the only option for a full NA team to be signed, a full roster, instead of picking and choosing individual players. So I will give Cloud9 credit with that. I'm just super curious what these guys can do. So ESL Rio will be the gigantic proving grounds, not only for Cloud9, for many rosters out there which have been on the struggle bus. We've seen a lot of newer teams out there that struggled throughout early 2019 come up in late, and vice versa. A lot of teams who were doing fairly well in 2018, or those scenes in general, have been certainly in a slump. I look towards teams like G2, teams like MIBR, so we will see who comes time in a few months here to really prove themselves. Still, though, it's going to be a tough run. We'll see if they can do it. Until next time, I hope you guys all enjoy breaking down CSGO esports gaming news here every single day, all day long. Until then, take care. Ta-ta.